So today's webinar is about building brands and lead distribution and what I've learned over the years. And I'm Dan Wardrope. You guys know me. I'm the owner of Flexxable, and I'm here with Anthony Burgin. How you going, mate?
I'm good. I'm very good. Yeah.
Good.
Good to get stuck into this.
Yes, looking forward to it. Okay, so as you guys know, it's going to make sense if you kind of tune out all of your mobile phones and Facebook and all that type of stuff. And you know, we don't often give ourselves a good hour just to focus. So take this time to kind of sit back and listen and learn something new. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Dan Wardrope. I have pay-per-lead agencies in the UK, Canada, and Asia. And my education program's Flexxable, which is worldwide, and we help people, agencies, business owners, SEOs, affiliate marketers. We help them, change the way they transact with clients from usually the old way, which is selling retainers, onto the pay-per-lead model. And tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I guess I've been in online marketing lead generation for since 2004, originally a CRM, I guess a CRM specialist at the time. I then migrated into helping clients generate leads. And after a spout in the finance sector, I spotted a bit of a gap in the market, a need for technology. And originally that's where Leadbyte started. It's kind of morphed into something a lot more now, but yeah, that's where we started. So Leadbyte has been running since 2013, and we're still quite a small team. There's 11 of us within the business. We have 200 plus clients globally, and we're based here in England. We have an office here in Chester, which is near Manchester, for those of you listening and don't know, and another office in Middlesbrough, where our tech team are. Nice. So Leadbyte is my primary focus, and I put Conversion in Hero in there because it's a new software project that we're working on to ultimately help solve a problem around offline conversions, which I think we've spoken about. So
yeah, we had a chat about that, and we can talk about that at the end. Yeah, I'm very intrigued to hear about how it works and how it might be able to help people on this call. So so if I'm correct, and you were in lead gen yourself. So were you running ads yourself, generating leads and selling them to clients, or were you the client, or how was that working exactly?
I was the client. Yeah. So I was the client for many years, which then kind of switched into helping other clients generate leads, but predominantly I was the client. Okay. And then I moved into taking from the ECRM type strategy of software. I moved into helping clients squeeze more profit out of their data. And that was specifically in the finance market. And we're going back there to 2008, 2009, yep. And haven't been doing that since. But yeah, that was where I was.
Interesting. So were you, I mean, how many leads were you kind of purchasing a day? And were you self-generating as well? Or what did that situation look like?
Well, at the time, as the lead buyer, yeah, we ran a loans network at the time, and for many of those listening, it was kind of like at the time a payday loan offer, which is now a installment loans. We were acquiring anywhere between 8,000 and 15,000 leads per day, wow. Focused here in the UK. Wow. Yeah, we didn't venture into any other markets such as America, where I know that they probably do that per hour in America. Wow. But, so we were kind of the first players in the market at the time. And yeah, we did that for 3 years. And then I moved straight away into software, which was actually going back to my pre-finance days, where I was working for a French company, putting together ECRM strategies and workflows, etc. All very similar, making journeys a little bit more optimized to get data from A to B. So I've kind of come back on myself in many ways.
Okay, interesting. So when you were buying all of these leads, the key was kind of, I imagine like a small change here and there can make the difference between making a loss and making a lot of money, right? So how did that work? What was that journey like, and how did you, is that how the CRM software was built off the back of that experience?
Yeah, we kind of built the software in-house at the time for that particular vertical. But the principle was very much the same. We were acquiring leads in real time, either direct to the site or via a kind of host and post API. So we were receiving data in any format. And we ultimately needed to validate that data.
Yep.
And distribute that to the right buyer. And the right buyer in the right way. So whether it was a classic ping tree type flow where it was a priority, start at the top, go to the bottom to monetize the lead,
yep.
or allocate lead based on a bidding strategy. Yeah, we were having to define the same principles that are available now with Leadbyte into that business at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had a panel of buyers, and you had to fit the criteria of the lead with the correct client.
Exactly. There was different budgets, different order values, different caps, different criteria for, if we use an example, that some buyers perhaps wanted only homeowners based in the north,
yep.
Where a loan amount was greater than £2,000, for example, then that would go off to a certain panel of buyers, and they would bid for that essentially. So yeah, it was a key part of making the business successful. Equal to that was so delivering upon the order request, but
yep.
what was equally important was stable, robust software, APIs that were up all the time. And that was a key point as well. Certainly when I look at the competitors at the time in the market, I guess where they were failing at times were lack of decent technology.
Yeah.
And affiliates in those days, and I'm sure are still now, can be quite transient. So it doesn't take long for you to be offline. And if you're offline, there are many options in the market now where you can switch to. So
yeah,
you had to be on it.
Interesting. Cool. All right. So what we're going to run through today, we're going to run through a bit of my journey and the progression and how I've moved and grown and learnt over the years. My experience building a brand, LeadsHook and distribution, which is one of the ways to do things. Problems I came across, next level technology for when you get good and you've got a lot of leads to deliver. A little bit about your clients. Time is money. This is kind of where Ant's going to take over. And we're just going to have a good chat about what's working in the industry now, what Ant's up to, and then we can have a Q&A at the end. Okay. Right. So my journey and progression. So I started online in 2009, and I typed into the internet pretty much make money online. Back then, I had no idea. I was an engineer, and I was just looking for a way to supplement my income. I made some bad investments, and I realized I had to get up and start working a couple of hours before my day job in order to make a few more bucks to cover the mortgage. So it's crazy kind of what has happened in it's just over 10 years now. And I did everything badly, honestly, really, really badly. I was terrible at affiliate marketing. I then started an SEO agency and was kind of cutting corners and using some pretty dodgy black hat techniques, which kind of worked back then, but didn't. And then I realized that I was able to buy some domain names, which is weird. I've done a bit of a full circle here as well, but I used to go and buy domains like roofers in Brighton or plumbers in London. And I thought that if I could buy that domain and put some thin content up, I might be able to rank for some of these keywords and then sell the leads on to buyers. It didn't work very well though. And when I think one of the pandas or the penguins hit, I quickly realized that I need to get into paid advertising, and I started doing some AdWords and Facebook management for local clients, and that went okay. I started to finally build what resembled a serious business. And then around 2016, I moved away from working with local clients, and I landed my first national client. who was from a B&I referral. I never forget, I used to go to these B&I meetings on Wednesday mornings at 6 a.m. in my local city, and it was painful. You had to get up and talk for 60 seconds about your business and basically pitch to the group, and then they would refer clients to you, and it was really, really painful. I went for about a year, and I didn't get much luck out of it. But then one day, one of the copywriters there referred me to one of their clients, who was a not-for-profit organization who needed a lot of leads to help people get out of council tax debt. And things happened pretty fast after that. So we were working and running ads on Facebook and on AdWords for these guys. And it turned out they weren't really a not-for-profit, and they were selling the leads on to various insolvency practitioners throughout the UK. And we blew up their business, like seriously blew it up. And it went really well for a number of months. And then we had some issues, some personal differences, and I essentially went, right, bugger this. I'm going to essentially do what he does, because I've learned everything. I've run all the ads. I've built all the landing pages. I've generated all the leads. Why don't I just go do that myself? And I built my first brand in 2017. And I started using surveys as well around then. And around the same time as that, when demand for the leads got a little bit too high, I invested in some lead distribution software. And now we generate a lot of leads on a pay per lead basis, and we sell to multiple buyers in probably only 3 verticals. So we have a few brands that we run traffic to. We have multiple buyers. We have very few advertising accounts, and we just tend to keep things simple. And that's the beauty of the pay per lead model. When you get it working and you can generate quality leads at a good price, then the world is your oyster. And it's a very simple and elegant business model, which has definitely changed my life. So,
and I guess, Dan, there you focused on 3 verticals, which I think is also quite key as well. You see lots of people that try to do too much too soon.
Yeah.
So I assume the 3 verticals, homing on those, has been key to your success as well, because you've been able to double down on a number of things that work well.
Yeah, that's right. I think people that come into my program, I mean, the first thing I always tell them is to go out and sell first, and have conversations and build relationships with clients, and then start building your funnels and stuff like that after. But what I don't like seeing is if they try and go into 5 or 6 different industries at one time and try and write ads and build funnels and all of that at the same time for multiple verticals, because that, believe it or not, is a problem that people have, because the pay per lead offer is so strong, right? It's not like selling a 6-month retainer contract to a local client that's not going to be guaranteed of any results. You know as well as I do, Ant, that if your leads are priced at a good price, and you've got a bit of a record and you can show people what the criteria is, most buyers will give you a go and see what it's like, because they don't have the luxury of kind of trying new verticals or trying new things. They have one business to run, and they need leads more than anything, right? That's the lifeblood of their business. So it's quite powerful.
Yep.
All right. So this was my first attempt at a brand. I've blanked out some of the details there. But essentially what I was doing was I had one brand, and I had a landing page essentially per client. And I would be running ads from one advertising account to one landing page, and then distributing the leads on a one-to-one basis to that client. And if I bought on another client, then I build another landing page, fire up a new campaign in Facebook or AdWords or whatever, and target that specific client with that specific campaign to their specific landing page. And it worked for a while, right? Like, when you're charging 40, 50 pounds a lead and you're getting them in for 10 or 15 pounds, it doesn't take long to earn a pretty decent living.
Yeah.
And, it worked. And I didn't have anyone to be able to tell me what I was doing right or wrong. And I was just kind of feeling my way through the market and trying to understand the best way to help my clients and make some money from my agency. And at this point in time, I had, I think, myself, and I hired had a small little office in Brighton, and I had my first hire, who was an intern to start off with. So I hired him on his summer break. I think he came for free, actually. And then when he graduated, he came on for, basically minimum. I think he was studying arts or something like that at university, so he couldn't get a job anywhere. And I ended up hiring him, and that's when things started taking off, because I could step away from the tools and sell a little bit more and start thinking more strategically as an agency, rather than trying to run around like a headless chicken, trying to make a lot of things work.
And with this landing page, Dan, were you, or an equivalent, presumably you were profitable just having one client?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very profitable. Yeah. So the guy, so what happened, the story was that the client that I had, that I kind of fell out with for various reasons, I actually went to his LinkedIn profile and saw who all his friends were. And then contacted each of them and said, I've been running traffic for in this particular vertical, and would you want to chat? And I got a reply the next day, and it was from one of the clients, and he said, I'm coming down to Brighton and I'm going to take you out for lunch. And I think we did actually a hybrid deal to start with. I think he agreed to spend, I think, £7,500 a week on ads, and I would get paid on anything that converted, and we call that a hybrid deal now. So this is me, who was used to making £4,000 or £5,000 a month or something, if I was lucky, in my agency after overheads, to someone coming down, taking me out for lunch, and agreeing for £30,000 a month in ad spend alone, which was like a drop in the ocean for these guys.
And did he pay for lunch?
He paid for lunch as well.
There you go.
Result. So it's crazy how things can change if you're speaking to the right people, and you have an offer that converts, which is, in my opinion, pay per lead.
Yeah.
So the second attempt, so as you can see here on the right-hand side, was the form. So first name, last name, email, phone, and another drop-down, and consent to collect, and then finish. That was a lead, right? And then I think I was, one of the guys that I'm good friends with that helped me in my journey was a guy called Mike Rhodes, who's a very good AdWords guy. And he introduced me to a guy called Nick Thackelal, who you guys probably know if you're attending this webinar. He's a great guy, and he started building some software called LeadsHook around the same time as I started doing some volume and generating some leads. And he said, Dan, why don't you, you're sending traffic to a form on a landing page. Why don't you try and ask some questions and see what happens, and put a quiz or a survey funnel on that landing page rather than a form, which was back here. And instantly overnight, our cost per lead dropped by at least 25%, probably closer to 50%. I can't remember exactly.
Why do you think that was done?
Why?
Yeah.
I just think people, if you ask the right question first, people kind of enjoy being able to see some sort of result and be surveyed. I don't know. It's kind of just human nature, really. If you can ask if they're male or female to start off with, they're like intrigued by what the answer might be, as opposed to looking at a landing page and seeing a five or six field form to put their details into.
Yeah. And from Facebook and Google's perspective, that looks like a greater level of engagement with the landing page, which ultimately means they want more of that. People like your landing page now, and so you're going to benefit from lower pricing, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. What were you doing with your brand back then? And did you have long forms like that, or it might have been a bit of a different scenario? But were you using survey software at all?
We were not. I wish I would have met Nick back then.
Yeah.
No, we weren't. It was we had some kind of multi-step form, but it was essentially one. It's specifically in the loans space, and it still is very similar today.
Yeah.
One large form and fill it out. I think perhaps the motivation is slightly different. If you take, for example, someone that is looking for help with credit in this example, and I'm out of this game now, so it's I'm a little bit sketchy on it. But back in those days, and I imagine the same now, when you're looking for credit help, it doesn't matter whether it's a you know, a 5-field form or a 30-field form. If they know that there's an opportunity to get credit, they will fill it out. So I think in that vertical, it was a slightly different scenario versus some of the different verticals that people are running now, where you do need to prime the customer and gain a little bit more confidence than perhaps someone that's just after a $200 loan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Although I imagine there is probably some opportunity. You say that people are motivated to go through a 40-field form or whatever it is, and you could speed that up. I bet you would have had a bit of an uplift in people who are completing the application.
Absolutely. I think I still see some websites out today that I think there could be some huge gains with using something like LeadsHook.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I agree.
Powerful stuff. And for those of you guys that haven't tried it, you know, I sing Nick's praises all the time. It's worth reaching out to him, mentioning my name, and he'll give, I think he has like a 1-hour consultation for anyone that comes through Flexxable. And he's a great guy, very, very, very clever. He's a marketer that has built software to help marketers really. So he's a bit of a genius. He also never sleeps, so you can always get hold of him. All right, so what I was doing then was sending traffic source over here on the left. And that for us is a combination of Twitter, Facebook, YouTube ads, Google search. What else are we running? A little bit of native, Taboola and stuff like that, but not too much. So once you have an offer that's dialed in, you can essentially tip traffic into that funnel from multiple different traffic sources. Okay, it's very scalable. So we would then send that traffic to a quiz funnel type landing page, and then we have the ability to distribute to different clients via asking questions in the quiz. So for example, you used your client before, Nick, who was in the north of England that wanted a certain criteria of leads. If you ask where they're located, then you can use that field and distribute the lead accordingly to that particular client, right?
Yeah.
And it was, you know, better than what I was doing before, but it still is pretty clunky because the problems that I encountered, and some of you guys that are listening on this call right now might be encountering the same problems, right? It's hard to distribute in any other way rather than in a round robin basis. And some clients had higher order numbers than others. So for example, if you're running ads in Facebook, for example, and you have a campaign for client A and a campaign for client B, you know, if you're running traffic to the same funnel and client A's budget is double client B's budget, then it just gets messy and you'll over deliver and then they won't pay for some leads, or you'll under deliver and they want more, and it's just a complete nightmare. Some wanted leads on location. Some wanted leads based on other criteria we captured within the quiz that we may not have captured in the quiz. Sorry, a bit of a typo there. So what's an example? So you can distribute on IP address, or you can distribute on location if you don't ask location with certain types of software that we're going to talk about in a minute. And this is kind of ants, kettle of fish, right? But there was a lot of problems there that we were trying to deal with by using, you know, pretty basic ways to distribute leads. Also, the client would tell us stupidly high numbers of duplicate or hoax leads, and we couldn't prove otherwise. This is a big one, right? So if you're selling the leads to someone and they're a little bit shifty, then they could be coming back and saying to you, actually, 25% of the leads we're not going to pay for because they're duplicates, right? And if you can't prove otherwise, then you just have to take their word for it.
And Dan, it's still a really big pain point now when we have clients come on board and we try to, we're all about trying to solve a problem. And this is one of the things that still comes up each time that be it over delivering on order numbers or duplicates are coming through because perhaps customers are not liking the results, so they're pressing the back button and going through it again. Pretty simple stuff, but is still a huge pain point in the market having a lead management system. So
exactly. And for example, if the client CRM went down as well, there was no way for us to tell, and we would just be sending money to sending leads to a brick wall, and they wouldn't be going anywhere. And like, who's going to pay for that? It's not going to be the client, even though it's their fault, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that sucks. That happened to us a few times, and we had to figure out a way to solve that. And of course, some clients just knew when you're stepping up and playing with the A graders, if you're kind of not talking their language, they're like, sorry, if you can't even do this, then you're not even worth talking to, basically. And I needed a more robust solution. And Ant, this is where you're going to take over. Tell us about what this more robust solution looks like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to start with a kind of a quote, really, and this is a real person and a real customer. And this here, so we went from 1 client to 15 clients, and from 30% unsold leads to 0 waste overnight. And I'd like to think that's pretty clear what the message is there. But essentially, this client in particular at the time came to us, and this is also very similar to many others that we speak to, that and like you've actually alluded to previously, that you had a landing page and you had 1 client and it was working great, but you needed to scale. And the reason you needed to scale is perhaps because you could generate more leads than that 1 client could handle.
Yes.
But also because that 1 client was quite specific about the type of criteria that they wanted. So we use that example that they wanted customers that are looking for, let's say, life insurance. You're generating life insurance leads, and that 1 client says, well, I'm happy to acquire leads where people are based in England, for example. And so if you're generating leads here in the UK, in Wales or in Scotland, then you've got a problem, you've got waste. And so they ended up having this issue where they had 1 client and a significant percentage of unsold leads, unallocated leads. So after using Leadbyte, they were able to onboard more clients, but more importantly, route those leads to buyers where criteria was pretty much covered for any geographic point in the UK and any criteria. And so that goes back to that point of, we went from 1 client to 15, and we sold 100% of our leads, which was a game changer for them. And again, this is still issues that we come across each time, where when you want to scale and you want to have a spread your risk, which is very important, not put all your eggs into 1 basket with 1 client, then distribution systems are important.
Yes. And at what stage, there's people on this call that are doing pay per lead, I suspect, right now, got some clients and they're starting to make it work. What is there a kind of a turnover figure or a volume of leads, or is there any other criteria you can think of where it's time for them to start thinking about this?
I guess it really depends on their appetite to scale their own business. Look, if you dependent on your motivations in life, whether you're a 1-man, 1-woman band, or you're a small agency, if you set yourself a goal and you achieve that goal, be it financially, and you're happy with that, then arguably you could say, well, I don't really need to do anything else. I don't need the stress. I don't need the hassle. I'm a family guy, and I enjoy playing golf, right? So I'm going to crack on as I am.
Sounds nice, actually.
In the instance where you start setting your goals higher, and it's like anything, right, Dan? I think you were probably there, that you say, right, my goal number 1 is I want to achieve this. And you realize that when you start achieving that goal financially, or the number of leads you want to sell per day, per week, once you get to that goal, more often than not, you want more, and you want to push the boundaries. And so really it comes down to answer your question, at what point should you make the decision? I think it really depends on whether you can achieve your goals with your current setup. And if the answer is no, then you need to move. But often you can achieve your goal with your current setup. Like you mentioned about the situation where you were using LeadsHook, which is a fantastic system, and I've been learning it myself recently, and Zapier, which is an amazing platform. But they're joining the dots between all those systems statistically can sometimes be a headache, and also making sure that you're protecting your downside, where perhaps the client's CRM is down, perhaps you don't have the right alerting in place, you don't have the right backup in place to make sure that you're still hitting the goals that you need to do, which might be 10, 20, 100, 1,000 leads per day sold. So
yeah,
I think it's circumstantial. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
So this part, really, it's when I was thinking about what clients want and what you want, I kind of summarized it at this, and this is my opinion, and other people's may change, but from the clients that we speak to, and we have both, Dan, we have clients that use our platform are either lead sellers or lead buyers. So we do have both. And what we discovered when speaking to the lead buyers, so in this instance, what your clients want, is they wanted more and they wanted better leads. And predominantly, to give you an example, to keep a call center busy. So they want more of better leads, and they need them delivered fast, because that has quite a significant impact on how they can convert those leads into sales to maximize their conversions. And they want leads that convert to help grow their business. And that latter part, I believe, is a mix of three things, such as making sure that you're homing in on the ads you're targeting, the audiences that you're targeting, which you know a hell of a lot more than that about me.
Yep.
Making sure that you're using the best in market technology that is consumer facing, so the likes of LeadsHook. So going to that example of making sure that you're priming people, that you're getting them interested in what they want. And then ultimately using a lead management system that filters out any of the leads that may have been missed on your audience targeting, or may have been slightly missed on your equivalent LeadsHook. This is where Leadbyte can make sure that you're getting the lead you want. And then ultimately what you want is you want more sales in less time, so you can focus on what matters. And focusing on what matters may be spending more time with the kids, or actually homing in on picking up the phone and trying to get another national client, or tweaking your ad campaign. So your marginal gains are the difference between a profitable campaign and a hugely profitable campaign. Yep. You don't want headaches, and as I say here, who really does want them? So you don't want external systems going offline and you have no idea. And you want leads that 10x your return on investment, so you can meet your goals quicker. And all these parts of a lead management system will help that. I think the most important thing there is listening to your clients as well.
Yep.
So yeah,
that's one thing I've learned, is that the clients, meeting them, chatting to them, I've spoken about this before, and having that relationship is so key.
It is, and managing expectations as well. If you take, for example, that second point, that a buyer says, I want my leads delivered fast. Well, why do you want them fast? It's because actually, in my world, which is a call center, that's the difference between a 30% contact rate and an 80% contact rate. Yeah. So if you're not delivering that lead into my CRM, into my dialer immediately, it's the difference between a phone call at the end of our trial period saying it didn't work or it did work. Yeah. And that's key as well, for sure. You've probably experienced that, Dan.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
So yeah, time is money, and automate it. And I think this just comes down to one of your previous your points, so that you're trying to do too much, and you want to reduce any manual workload, and focus on the sales and the ads. And I think that having a system like LeadsHook and having a lead management system like Leadbyte enables you to automate all of the workflows that you need. Be it leads are coming into the system in real time, leads are being validated in real time, quarantining leads to make sure that they are on point, automating the distribution of leads to the right buyer, reducing that manual workload, including, by the way, reporting. It's a huge thing. So many of our clients that we hear come to us saying, I'm drowning in spreadsheets trying to organize my data, and I don't really know what leads are actually making me money. I can figure it out, but by the time I've figured it out, it's too late. Yeah. So all about automating everything is so important, and also avoiding missed opportunities. you discussed earlier about trying to land your next client. One thing that we notice when clients do come on board is a pain point that they have is that they want to take it to the next level. They want to maximize their lead gen, and they want to work with some of the big boys in the market. Some of those big boys in the market, that it's not so much the fact that who are you and should I work with you. It's actually can you integrate and work with our systems. And these systems may not be as simple as just posting a lead in real time, but there may be something like two-way authentication, which means I'm going to post it. You're going to see whether you like it. Then I'm going to exchange some very complicated back-end tokens to authenticate that I'm, a real supplier. And then I'm going to pass you the lead. And that can't always be achieved with the likes of something like Zapier. I'm sure you can figure something out, but we provide something that is out of the box where you can overcome that. And if you can't do that, it's a missed opportunity, which ultimately means you're missing growing your revenue. Yeah. And equally, eliminating frustration points, which invariably come through errors, data not being delivered in the correct format, over delivering on leads. In many ways, buyers acquiring leads actually like oversupply, but for you, actually, it's just killing your profit. And also making sure that everything is compliant. I think when you're manually handling data, there is human error that can come into play. And if human error comes into play, depending on what side of the pond you sit on, whether you're America or the UK or you're non-Europe, you obviously, you're very much aware of GDPR and the equivalents that are moving around other countries now, that it's important that your processes are automated to avoid any humans making a mistake that was completely innocent. Yeah. Which ultimately means there's no repeat orders. You're giving me a headache as a supplier. You're not delivering the leads how I want them. You can't integrate to my system. The data's coming in the wrong way. This isn't working. And back to that point of we had a client that came to us that said, we're working with a call center. They're a utility company, a pretty big one. We're providing them with leads, and we're delivering them leads every hour on the hour. I said, how's that working? He said, well, we download the leads and we send them to them. Wow. Or upload them to the FTP. I was like, okay, and how's that backing out? And they said, well, it's working okay for the client, but it's not quite working for us. It's not really making us the return that we need. So we need to deliver these leads in real time. So we solved that problem. They moved from manually delivering leads to doing that in real time. Yeah. The difference for the buyer was insane.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was working for them on FTP upload and working from 1 hour data, it must have blown up their business.
Yeah. Well, what happened? I remember the situation very well, and I won't mention any names to remain professional, but they got blocked by Facebook.
Really?
Yeah. Which again, you probably know more than me about things such as this.
That's happened.
Yeah. So they got blocked by Facebook, and they received an alert from Leadbyte to say, hey, there's an unusual pattern here. You usually generating leads, and now you're not. The phone rang from the buyer within minutes, and they said, hey, what's going on with the lead supply? And he said, oh God, yeah, right. I'm down at the moment. He didn't go into details, but yeah, I'm offline. I need to get it sorted. Yeah. What he realized from that was that perhaps the quality of his leads were actually quite high. So he ultimately ended up negotiating different prices. And I think his lead price increased by 4 times. Yeah. On the basis that he realized that he was supplying thousands of leads over every week. And no wonder the client was happy. They were making good returns from it. Conversions were great. And in many ways, I guess he has Facebook to thank for switching him off, because it resulted in him renegotiating his contract, and he still works with them today, and he makes a lot of money. So it's great. Yeah.
I think an important point here as well is that sometimes you forget how old school some of these clients are, right? Like, they might be spending $1 million a month on lead generation, but you might be surprised when you look under the hood at how basic their systems are and how much you can actually help their business by, maybe introducing them to someone like Ant, or, giving them a better solution than they're currently doing. It will seriously blow up their business. I'm sure you experience that a bit as well, Ant.
Yeah, for sure. I'm obviously on the side of the fence now, where I'm helping clients, and often I'm used as a soundboard for many clients. But yeah, it's huge. The difference between real time delivery and not, so automation is significant.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Okay.
So yeah, I guess we want to talk about here just briefly, really around any system, any format, right every time. We, as many lead management systems, they should be able to help you integrate to pretty much any system that's out there. And it's not to say that you're integrating to, we have integrations to every single system, but we cover integration types supported by systems. So I've just listed some, some visuals there of who we deal with. Hopefully some are recognizable to people listening today. But when you mentioned on a previous slide about perhaps you didn't look too sophisticated, again, this comes up time and time again, where an inquiry will come in to use our platform because they're kind of happy with their current situation now. And it might be similar to you, that they're using LeadsHook, again, great system to use. The data is being collected, it's being pushed over to maybe something like Zapier, and Zapier is delivering the lead as their current client requires it. Then the next client comes along that is more sophisticated in terms of the way their system works, and perhaps something like Zapier can't help with it. Hopefully no one from Zapier is listening here, but I know it's a great platform. Yeah, it's a great platform. But so sometimes there are restrictions. And look, we have, and I did this check. We have currently over 4,500 live integrations running through our platform right now, and that is, some of them may be to the same systems, but we make sure that every single endpoint can be covered off. And sometimes we have to do some bespoke coding, but we won't charge the clients for that in that instance if it's beneficial for everyone else. But so any CRM, any format is a really important point to making sure that you can grow your business, because that's where you can miss the opportunity of revenue. Yeah. Making sure that data is relevant. I think LeadsHook does a fantastic job at priming data and putting it into a certain pot, much like you used to do with a certain results page. Yep. In the instance where you're collecting your responses, and then once it's handed over to Leadbyte needs to do some advanced distribution around, well, this client only wants people that have a current mortgage of between 80 and 130,000 pounds, and they live in Scotland, for example, and they might not have any existing debts. So making sure that you get the relevant data to the buyer every time is really important, and that's what a lead management system will help with. Yeah. And this last point here, advanced file scheduling, because not everyone can do API essentially. It's an interesting one, Dan. With this, the topic of this kind of webinar is around about automation and the benefits and the cost of not having a lead management system. But I am amazed, and I don't know if you have this with your business still, but we talk about how some clients are still quite simple. Yep. In the way in which they process things. We have one client in particular, a European client. They operate in at least 8 countries, predominantly in Europe, and 60% of their income, billable income, comes from sending files still, where the buyers don't have an API. And So I think it's also important to understand that although a system like Leadbyte can help you with APIs and making sure that data is delivered in real time through an API, that's the ideal world for everyone. In fact, it's the ideal world, I'm sure, for many of these buyers, but they just don't know it yet. But advanced file scheduling enables clients to automate what they would otherwise do manually. And that is, they need to send an email from them to the buyer in a specific file format, with a certain file name, with the columns in a certain way, with data that has come in from the likes of LeadsHook in one way, but we need to rewrite it automatically in another way for exactly how the buyer needs it, is still a big thing. And an example of that would be you collect first name, last name, and email. And actually what goes out on the Excel or CSV file is forename, surname, and email address. A really simple example. It gets a bit more sophisticated than that. But the point being that file scheduling still happens, and there's still a huge part of the lead generation market from what we see with our clients. And it can't be ignored. But a good lead management system, and I'm going to say like Leadbyte, will enable you to automate even that part, which is hugely important. So I don't know if you still deliver files manually, or is it all API?
No, not really. It's all API. It did get me thinking about something though that was a game changer in one of the industries we're in. Is you're dealing with solicitors, and this may or may not be related, but it's worth talking about anyway. Sometimes solicitors have to send essentially a pack out, right, to the consumer that's the lead, in order for them to sign it, in order to engage them to act on their behalf. And one thing that we did figure out how to do was actually integrate with DocuSign. So the people could go through the funnel, put in their details, and then the thank you page is essentially DocuSign. So they can sign using their finger on their iPad or their mouse or whatever.
Nice.
Engage the solicitors and then hit submit, and then the DocuSign or the pack is sent straight to the client and is also sent straight to the consumer, and it's taken out a whole another step within the lead generation process. Because I think within the industry, in the olden days when they were running it the old way via snail mail or whatever, I think the pack out to pack back rate was something like 75%. So by installing technology like this, it immediately added 25%, because everyone that became a lead was doing the DocuSign thing. So it's amazing what you can do with technology these days. And I'm sure you've experienced something like that with Leadbyte as well.
Yeah, well, actually, earlier on, I had a call with a new prospect, and one of the things that they wanted to make sure that they could do is that when a lead is generated, so they're also actually using LeadsHook, but lead comes into LeadsHook and then it's distributed to one of their buyers, or one of many of their buyers. But they wanted to make sure and sense check that they can, with Leadbyte, they can post it in real time to their CRM, which they can do. But at the same time, because they're involved mortgage brokers, they wanted to make sure that the right mortgage broker could also receive the lead via SMS and email, because they're on the road. I mean, now slightly different with COVID, right? But in a normal environment, they would be on the road. So they wanted a live delivery, they wanted an SMS sent, they wanted to back that up with an email, and then finally, every day at 7 a.m. for the previous day's leads, they wanted to automate a CSV file to go to that email address to make sure that they didn't miss anything. And, so although we've got all this kind of sophistication in terms of delivery, it's interesting that the most useful way of receiving a lead feedback is actually via a text message. They just want to jump on that lead straight away. So, and they're not connected to dialers or CRMs 24/7. So, interesting.
We're in a great time, aren't we, where we can use the technology of today in order to seriously blow up businesses which used to run in a completely different manner 5 years ago. It's just, the opportunity is just mind-boggling, really.
It makes me realize how did you make money before?
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly. That's all cool stuff. All right. Oh, where are we? Okay. So squeeze more. This is the interesting bit for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to hear what you say here.
Yeah. What makes it interesting for you, Dan? What is it? What do you think's coming?
Well, I
I'm
think
hoping it's going to come.
Yeah, I think wastage is the big thing, right? Because from what I've learned over the years, clients would actually rather work less, better quality leads and have their call center working, 5 really good leads a day each, rather than 20 crap ones that they just have to continually dial over and over and over again.
Yeah.
They'd rather buy more and pay more. They'd rather buy less and pay more for a lead than buy more and pay less, if that makes sense.
100%.
Every time.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to one of my initial points about more sales and less time. Maybe in this instance, more conversions and less time spent dialing numbers that aren't connected, for example. And I think I'll go back to your slide number 12 where you mentioned the point about hoax leads and you can improve otherwise, and if a CRM went down and maybe you're on the golf course and you don't realize that and you don't have the right alerting, and this is where this part kind of comes into it, and maybe this is part for a discussion, but the maximize revenue through advanced distribution is quite a big topic, but essentially when you were showing how you were doing things in the early days where you had a landing page and you had one buyer, there wasn't anything specifically advanced about that other than it worked and it's what the buyer wanted and you gave it to the buyer and everyone was happy. In the instance where you then add on a number of buyers who all have different types of criteria, but also more importantly, actually might all want the same lead, then you kind of go, well, how do I deal with that? So, and I don't know how you're dealing with that at the moment exactly, Dan, but or certainly any students that you speak to. But let's assume that you're delivering leads, let's say for your a debt client, and then that suddenly overnight turns into 5 debt clients. Let's just assume there's very little criteria that's been set by each, other than I want the lead first. How do you deal with that at the moment, and how do your students deal with that at the moment that you're aware of?
Well, we just have a bit of a rule of thumb within the agency, and maybe we are a little bit old school, but we just tend to over deliver by about 10% each week to our clients.
Yeah.
And we then reconcile at the end of each week to see how many over or under we are, and then we tend to try and make up the following week. And it works pretty well for us, rather than having to kind of, try and match our advertising spend to exactly the number of leads we want to deliver or whatever. We just kind of have a good relationship with the client, and we kind of just let that, if we are under deliver, then they're cool with it and we'll fix it up next week type thing. It's probably a bit old school, but it seems to work fairly well.
And in the instance, Dan, where let's say you have, we'll use again the example of debt, but you have 5, you have your landing page. Let's just assume you've got one and you've got your funnel running. It's highly tuned in. It's highly, it's converting at a great rate. And you have 5 buyers, and you agree with each buyer a certain amount per week. How do you deal with your distribution at the moment? How do you decide is it still the round robin, or?
Usually caps. So we can put a cap on the number of leads per day that person wants, and then we'll distribute up to that cap, and then it won't deliver any more leads on top of that.
Yeah, okay. And what happens in the event, and I think we've had this conversation before, and perhaps you differ to some others, but in the event where you post a lead to buyer A, and buyer A rejects that lead either because their CRM is down or it's a duplicate or it doesn't match criteria. How do you handle that at the moment?
That'll just be automatically sold to the next client.
Great. So you're in a situation where you're using the advanced distribution options, and that sounds something like priority. And I think this is what we find with perhaps the old way of doing things, which maybe where you were a while ago, is that clients will come to us and say, I'm generating leads, I'm starting to scale my business, but I'm realizing that my buyer isn't actually buying all of the leads that I'm selling them or pushing to them. They're only actually taking 30%.
Yep.
And maybe the reason they're only taking 30% is because they've seen that lead already and they don't want to pay for it again. In which case they say, well, I've now secured another national buyer who's willing to take what I would call maybe a stop back buyer. They're willing to take that lead that was originally rejected. And unless you have this advanced distribution option, and in this instance, it's like commonly known as a ping tree. You push the lead to a buyer and they accept or reject it. And if they accept it, they've got the lead. If they reject it, it goes down to the next one and to the next one and until it's ultimately sold. And that is, again, and you will know this, that is the difference it can be between making profit on Facebook or Google and not, because you want every single lead to be sold. It might not be sold at the top of the tree for $50, but you know what? You sold it for $15 to buyer number 5. And overall that's made a difference to your P&L. And that really bad infographic that I've put together, hopefully people can see that okay. It's just an example here. Lead comes in, Bob is sent to buyer 1, he rejects it, buyer 2 rejects it, but it goes to buyer 3. And so that lead has ultimately been sold. And there are different ways around advanced distribution, weighted distribution, where you're giving everyone an equal share on a like a round robin. Some clients in some industries multi-sell, so they generate a lead perhaps for a roofing client or roofing lead, and they actually have 5 buyers lined up, so they want to multi-sell. And that advanced distribution, which is what Leadbyte is really all about. When clients come to us and say, well, what makes you different from anyone else that might be on the market? We give them the usual blurb, but usually most clients come to us because they want to get smarter with their distribution. They want to make sure that they're not exceeding caps with their buyers. They're making sure that they're sending the correct data, the correct lead every time. They actually don't want to put all their eggs into one basket. So they've now decided that they want to split the leads that they do between 5 buyers equally. But at the same time, if one of those buyers reject, that it's passed on to the other one in line. And it's that advanced distribution that really makes a difference to having let's say a 6-figure agency and not.
It really it's interesting. Is. Alex has just asked what happens to the unsold leads if they're left over at the end of the day. So I'll answer what we do to ours. If we've got some left over, we'll just pass them on for free on what we call a back end deal. So they still kind of get sold, and we can track that it's been sent to a client on a back end deal. So we'll try and squeeze everything we can out of on a front end pay per lead basis, but there'll be still clients who will take and work these leads on a back end and pay us like 50% of the commission of that sale. So no leads get wasted is the answer. Yeah,
it's actually interesting. There's one client of ours that I only spoke to him yesterday, so I'm thinking of him. He does car finance, and he's got a ton of kind of panel of buyers linked into to his system, and he's the same as you, Dan. So he can always, let's say he's got 20 buyers, 18 of those buyers, 17 of those buyers will make a decision in real time. And if he doesn't, he always has a backstop buyer, which is on a CPA. So it's on a back end deal. But what he actually does is he lines up 2 or 3. So he doesn't just have one backstop buyer. He actually has 2 or 3, which then means within Leadbyte, you can set what we call a hybrid distribution, where it may be priority. So there could be a priority mechanism, which then jumps into a weighted mechanism, which then at the end drops out to a multi-sell to say, okay, well, I didn't sell it in real time. So now I'm going to see which one of the 3 buyers who's all going to get a copy of this lead, so long as it's compliant and it's done in the right way, is going to make me the most money. And it works fantastically well. Really important.
Chris has said, what if the sold leads are not converted by the lead buyer? Would you recycle to another lead buyer? I mean, you do have that option, but it depends really on the relationship with the buyer and, you know, what's agreed. If they buy that lead, then that's essentially their data. But what you can do is also negotiate with them and say, listen, you've got this data for 2 weeks, And then after that, we can resell it, obviously being GDPR compliant and making sure that's all cool. That's another option too. I'm sure you see that happen as well, Ant.
Yeah, I do. You know what? The devil in the detail is in the consent, and you'll know this, Dan. That ultimately the big question is, well, who owns this data? Is it Dan, or is it Dan's buyer, or is it actually legally both of us?
Yeah.
And in the instance where you don't sell a lead, but that lead has opted into your brand, and you have the correct consent based on the country that you're generating that lead for in. It's you then have various options. Like you say, you could actually negotiate with someone else so long as they're listed. Alternatively, that then comes on to things such as nurturing and remarketing. Not every lead can be sold. I'd like to think that you can get it to that point, but in the student's comment there, if the lead isn't sold for whatever reason, what do I do? Well, I guess option one is you don't do anything and you just write that off as a marketing cost exercise. And number two is that if you have the correct consent, you then remarket to that lead with other offers that perhaps you own, so long as you have the right consent. And I really want to make that clear here, that it's all about the consent. So an example could be, let's say you're generating life insurance leads, and they've come in for life insurance, it hasn't been sold. You have the correct consent to send them other like offers that may be of benefit. And it might be that you actually have a health insurance brand connected. In which instance you could actually send an email and or an SMS to say, hey, we couldn't help you here, but perhaps you're interested in some of the other ways in which we can save you money or get a better deal, and push them to a site that you have that is almost like comparison-esque. We're seeing this happen quite a lot, Dan, where clients are focusing on a certain vertical on a domain, but in the instance where a lead can't be sold, and or they just want to remarket that data to squeeze more profit out of it, they're actually then setting up some form of an ECRM strategy, a scheduling strategy, say, hey, Dan, I couldn't help you with this, or I could help you with this, but also you might be interested in some other offers that I have here that are exclusive to me, or offers that I've discovered on the market that I think will be great based on your profile. And that's one thing within Leadbyte, as with, by the way, any ESP that you may use, be it MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, etc., that you can send messages based on specific data values that you collect. So it's hugely important. Squeezing more profit out of every lead. It's the difference between what your peers and what your competitors, you're wondering why they're driving around in a really nice fancy car and you're still on your electric scooter, but you're doing okay. Maybe a bad analogy, but you understand, right? It's important.
The cross-selling and upselling is quite powerful if you can get it dialed in, for sure, and it can all be done through your software, right?
I mean, just to give you an example of kind of volumes that we do. I mean, we what wash through our system any given day is nothing shy of around about 4 million leads per day are processed through Leadbyte. So
holy crap! Wow.
But we've got lots of DANs. So we've got lots of DANs using the platform across lots of countries, across various verticals where it's extremely high volume, and it's not. So it sounds like a lot, but when you kind of go, okay, these guys have got over 200 clients and operating in different markets, then actually it's not too huge.
It's really interesting, isn't it? 4 million leads per day. It's funny because when I first started learning about marketing and running an agency and all of that type of stuff, this world that's going on that we're aware of now and that I'm aware of now, and obviously speaking to you, you're in the thick of it too. It's not really kind of spoken about or taught or anything really. It's just kind of going on in the background, and people are still stuck on trying to do AdWords for a local dentist or something, and they don't obviously I'm a bit biased, but there's just this world out there where it's just the opportunity is so huge. It's incredible, really.
It is, but I think, you know, credit to yourself and with your course. And I don't want to go off piste here, but to summarize what I've seen, Dan, is that I think what people get from your course is not just the education from them logging in and consuming the 6-week course, if it's still 6 weeks, by the way.
Yeah.
But also the community that you've built within the Facebook group. You know, it's live, it's real. People are helping people solve problems, and also people are saying, hey, by the way, you might be struggling, and just to let you know, I've got this niche over here. It sounds like there's probably plenty of money in this niche for everyone to share. So I just want to share my experience. And that's what I like about the course, is that it's quite refreshing. Of course, some people, and rightly so, are going to be guarded about what they do. And I get that. And I think it's right. But I do also like the fact that it's a great way to meet people and to say, hey, I'm looking to make money. Can you help? And, you know, I see people connecting all the time. And it's great.
Happens a lot. It's great. Interesting question as well for you is, like, how many people are often worried, and it's something that I often think about is, you know, how big, well, let's say you go after, I don't know, let's say life insurance is a vertical. How many leads are actually out there, apart from stating the obvious? I mean, what are your thoughts on it becoming saturated for the small guy starting out that might have bought my course and are wanting to generate life insurance leads? Is it possible for them to get going? I mean, I've seen it happen, right? But what are your thoughts, and what do you think is too competitive, and how would you navigate that if you were starting from scratch doing lead gen with very little experience?
It is a good question. I guess my formula, number one, would be follow the money. So if specifically when you're trying to pick what vertical to go in, we know, and you see on your course, that people are operating in debt. They're operating in life insurance in general, loans, roofing leads, home improvements, all weird and wonderful
solar
things.
panels and things like that. Yeah,
exactly, solar panels. And I know that's a bit of a bloodbath at the moment with COVID, but yes, a huge market. So my piece of advice would always be to follow the money. And if you can follow the money, you can often find that there are niches within that money. I'll give you an example. I hope this is a decent example for everyone.
Yes.
If we take, for example, mortgage leads, be it remortgage or just standard mortgage or first-time buyers, it's been around for quite some time. The industry has not gone anywhere, and it's had a few bumps in the road, but it's still there, and it still remains to be there. I had a sit down with a client who was actually quite well established. They're looking for mortgage leads, but they specifically wanted something that others were not generating, and that was those on a standard variable rate. I said, okay, so you buying those leads? They said, well, yeah, we want more of them, but we're just getting remortgage leads, we're getting standard first-time buyers, etc. But if you can deliver to us clients that can specifically generate a standard, people are on a standard variable rate. By the way, I didn't even know whether I was on or not on a standard variable rate. So I guess that's where someone like LeadsHook can help you reveal that. But it made me realize that the mortgage market in many ways in lead gen is saturated, but at the same time, there are niches within that, but also people's mortgages are being renewed every day.
Exactly. The whole market opens up every single day. This is what people don't understand when they say, is it too saturated? I'm like, there's people yesterday that weren't in the mortgage market that are in there today, and you're on a level playing field with everyone else.
Yeah, I don't see saturation too much as a barrier. I guess where it becomes a barrier in many ways is when you've got lots of people in a specific vertical on in a maybe a country with a smaller population than something like America, where also they're all pushing all of their ad spend into one channel, which might be Facebook, and you start to see the pinch, right? You start to see, oh, cost per click has actually gone up. Maybe there's a competitor, maybe the weather's nice, maybe we're just having a bad day, maybe Facebook are just being Facebook. But yeah, I don't see competition too much as a barrier, to be honest, Dan. I just say, I follow the money. If the money is there, and this is my advice to clients, is that if the money is there, find a way to do something better.
Yeah.
Find a way to make your landing pages, completely kick ass. And find that buyer that is willing to pay, 30% more for that standard variable.
Special. Yeah.
And I had a conversation with a casino client. It was last week. And they said, I don't know if the market's going to get tough because of, everyone's coming into the market. Everyone's being an aggregator in casino. And I said, yeah, but people turn 18 every day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, yeah, what do you mean? I said, well, every day someone has an 18th birthday, which means they can go and bet. I'm not going to encourage it, by the way. So then you just have to decide, how many people turn 18 in your country every day? So I don't think saturation is an issue, in my opinion.
Yeah, and finding that niche within a niche is often key. And I've seen people come in and go into the mortgage space within my program and go from 0 to £20,000 a week within 2 or 3 months during COVID. And that's because this particular person found that angle into the market, and the ad copy and the landing pages and the creatives that he put together were different from what everyone else is doing. And he's absolutely smashing it. So it can happen very easily if you find that right angle. All right.
Sure.
So tell us a bit about Leadbyte and, what it can do. I mean, we've already discussed in detail, but you've got a few bullet points here.
Well, yeah, I guess that the one of the final points here is that, I've always told by a friend, kind of tell a story if you can and make a point. And I interviewed a client pre this webinar just to get some feedback on them. And I'm just going to go through each point here. So after using Leadbyte, when we talk about the afters here, everything. So once I've got Leadbyte, how have things changed after? And for them, they were able to provide a higher quality of compliant check leads quicker into their call center. So they were specifically delivering leads for a call center, energy switching type call center. Yeah. They were able to deliver those leads in real time, which invariably helped boost contact rates. Quite an important one for them was the ability to actually provide some of their clients that were buying leads not in an API with a secure portal. And GDPR and data security is a huge thing. So within Leadbyte, you get access, your buyers get access to a portal where they can check their statistics and download their leads as and when they want. So, and that was a key part for them securing another client. Making sure that you only send relevant data to ensure that their agents are not dialing out on data that won't convert. That's a huge thing. And I go back to the other two pillars, I guess, of that, which is making sure that you're targeting the right people and making sure that you're using something like LeadsHook to prime the right people. But then ultimately, when it gets into Leadbyte, make sure that the criteria that you're delivering to them still checks out. Making sure new leads are checked against existing numbers that you've already sent. That's a big one. So, there's nothing worse than dealing with a buyer that is perhaps doesn't have the level of sophistication with their API to even simply check a duplicate. But in this instance, making sure that you're not sending that buyer the same lead time and time again, which is wasting their agent's time. Big one. So simple, but still quite a big one. Sending pre-sales call SMS. I don't know if you do this, Dan, and I know you can do it, by the way, within I'm pretty sure within LeadsHook. But this is an example where if you have a number of buyers and one of them buys the lead, and maybe it's the third buyer in play, you can actually work with your buyer to say, hey, I'll help improve your contact rates. I can send an SMS specific to that lead, so customize the SMS for that lead and for you as that buyer, so you can send on the buyer's behalf in this sense, so long as you have their consent. And I guess the most important one, which I know you're a stats guy, is making sure that you have that real-time revenue insights from your buyers, so you can double down on the ad spend that's really working, and that's a key thing. I'm not too sure how much granularity some of these other systems like Zapier, for example, might have about revenue tracking. In fact, I don't even know if they do it, but within Leadbyte, you can track where the lead came from, who sold that lead, and how much you sold it for, which fuels your ad spend to say, right, I'm doubling down. That's where the money is.
Yep, exactly. Cool. All right. So tell us about the deal that you've put together for people listening to this webinar and anyone that's involved with Flexxable.
Yeah. So I guess, we're an enterprise. We are an enterprise type software, and often with enterprise type softwares come enterprise prices. But I do believe that we've solved that problem through research on the market and some of the other systems out there, like you mentioned, Cake, which by the way I think is a great platform. But depending on where you are in your journey with lead gen, perhaps Cake might be overkill and too much to get started. So we put together, listening to some of the Flex group conversations and speaking to some students and some pain points they had, but also understanding what the value of leads were for them. We decided to put together some package that should open the door to taking your lead generation to the next level, where you can have access to all of the features within Leadbyte. We put a number here. I think we discussed it, Dan, actually, of 10,000 leads per month. Is that enough? Is it not enough? I guess it depends what vertical you're in, but it seemed to be a sweet spot.
Yep.
Getting people started with, SMS. So we're offering 1,000 free SMS credits. And the reason we did that is because of the impact that pre-sales calls SMS can have on contact rates. So what we thought is that if we can provide free SMS, or at least partial free SMS, 1,000 free credits to these students, it's a good start for the buyers that they're dealing with to get off to a good start with contact rates. But again, I know that the likes of LeadsHook do SMS. Two verticals, using the language that I see a lot, we call them campaigns, they're lists. But so two verticals. A vertical will be you've got life insurance and you've got debt, for example. Yep. And then 2 buyer contracts per vertical. So that enables you to get access to the feature of weighted distribution or priority. So if one buyer on the debt vertical rejects it, then the second buyer has the option to buy it. So we wanted to provide all the features available that someone from the Flex group could get stuck into. Now we've kind of removed pricing as a principle now. So we try to customize everything for our clients, and some clients are on a basic package of maybe £200 a month, and then we've got some clients that are in excess of £5,000 a month, based on certain things that they need. So we found that the £200 a month, which is usually £500 a month in this instance, was a sweet spot, and we haven't had any objections soon. So I really hope that it's all about understanding value, Dan. I think when people say, wow, you sound expensive, I might reply with, well, compared to what? What are you comparing us to? And, often I see the comments as well, is that, if you really want to maximize what you're doing, then you need to invest. Like people need to invest in your training course. It's all about the value add at the end of the day. And
trust me, this is a good deal for anyone that's listening. And what about, and one thing that I didn't think about before this call is that, what about if any of the people listening here have got clients that are maybe very 1980s and need to move to the future? How would it go? I mean, do you think you can help consult for these clients to be able to help build their systems off the back of Leadbyte, or what would the process be from there? Because I think for those of you listening, you could really have, some big gains for your clients if you help you know, supercharge the way their sales team works these leads and help by implementing SMS and email follow-up and all that type of stuff. I think that's a big opportunity. So how would that work?
Yeah, we consult. We do have a principle in play where with our current clients, that if they introduce a client to us that becomes a client, they get 20% discount off their license fee per month. So in simple terms, introduce 5 buyers that are stuck in the 80s. I'm an 80s kid, so I think the 80s is a great era. But and you're not, are you, Dan? You're 70s.
70s.
But,
yeah.
No. So if you want to improve the process with your buyers and you want your buyer to be responding in real time, and therefore you decide that you want to introduce your buyer to use Leadbyte, do that 5 times and you pay 0 per month.
Yeah.
And just so for the record, we have a lot of clients that do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so,
cool.
Cool. Quid pro quo.
Yep. All right. So I guess we got some question times now. I'll kind of read them out and you can answer them. If I probably can't most of them. So
sure.
Well, I mean, I can answer this one. What's the main difference between LeadsHook and Leadbyte? So LeadsHook generally is what captures the leads, and Leadbyte is what sells the lead, if that makes sense, Ron. Sells the lead to different buyers and squeezes the most juice out of every single lead that you've had, which is when you can, you know, dominate the market. If you can sell every lead and get the most money out of every single lead, then you're able to spend more to acquire those leads, which will make you unbeatable.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Amit, some people are answering the questions for me, which is great. Okay. Can we at least see the system before committing to it? How would that work? And if someone wants to have a strategic call with you or whatever, what would that look like?
Yeah, get in contact, send a private message, send an email, and we typically just understand their current situation, the pain points or the problems they're trying to solve, and if Leadbyte sounds right and their time is right, we can schedule a demo. And just for the record, our demos are specific to the industry or the situation that we're in. We don't do a generalized demo. It's we found it's a waste of time. So
cool.
If you have a specific need, we will demo that specific need to show you the value of Leadbyte.
Sweet. How do you compare with High Level? I'm not sure what High Level is. It must be some other software. Have you heard of it?
I think this came up in your group the other day. Excuse me if I'm wrong here. Who wrote that? Go High Level. I believe that's a CRM. So, and to be clear about the difference here, if Go High Level is that, that's kind of like a desktop agent. So think I've got agents. I receive leads. I assign those leads to agents and I make appointments and I have feedback against those leads. So what I would classically call a CRM. Leadbyte is not that. Leadbyte is lead in, lead validated, lead distributed, revenue tracked, cost tracked, nurture, monetize, remarket to your data.
Yeah, cool. Derek's asking, could Leadbyte do everything that LeadsHook does? Are they completely different? I think we've answered that one. They are different beasts. Both required, I believe. Well, I guess that's another thing to talk about is that, you know, there's some of you that might not be at the level that they need to invest in something like this. And something like LeadsHook can do everything you need for now. But what I would say is that when you get to the point where it's, you know, it's getting a bit much for you, the £199 a month or whatever that we've got here will be made back on the first day that you get started. So, you know, cut your teeth, learn, develop those relationships, and then start looking at, you know, squeezing more out of what you're doing. And that's when something like Leadbyte is going to be a good fit for you. Yeah. Dan, does PPL work for new starters, or would the retainer work better until you learn about the industry, cost per lead, etc.? So we teach this in the course. I don't think I've ever invested or risked my own money when it comes to starting in a new industry. All right. And what we teach within the program is positioning the offer to the client where they take the risk initially. All right. Because both parties need to have skin in the game. And the way we do that is via a hybrid deal where we get the client to pay for the advertising spend. And then we work out a back end deal where we get paid on any conversions. But that works really well is because you get your foot in the door. You can see how much the cost per leads are. You can see how much you're generating them for. You can see if they're converting and what the conversion rate is, and then you can use that intel to go into the same market with other buyers in the industry. So that's the way I would always suggest doing it, Samuel.
Yeah.
Chris Mitty, do you have a USP over competitors such as FLG or Get? You know, how are you guys different to them?
FLG, for the record, I think is a great platform. I don't know him personally, but I do know of the owner over there. So how are we different? So FLG is more like a desktop agent type software, but you can do lead routing with that. And I can't comment too much on whether I think Leadbyte is better or FLG is better. I haven't seen their platform for quite some time. As with anyone, I would say get a demo and make a decision yourself. I think with FLG, they have some lightweight pricing, but I think they're restricted to the UK. So in fact, I've been told they're restricted to the UK. So anyone that is in the UK and is doing low lead volume, then FLG could be an option. Anyone that is not operating in the UK or wants to expand out of the UK, I would question whether FLG would be the right fit. But again, they would need to check.
Cool.
Good platform though, good guys.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ian, how long is the offer good for?
Lifetime.
Lifetime offer.
That's a deal that we agreed, Dan, where if you're you're on the Flex group, then yeah,
Nice.
you're on the program.
Legend, mate. Thank you. Okay, how is the lead validation performed in Leadbyte? Sounds like a tech question.
Well, I guess the question is, what type of validation? Are we talking about syntax or real-time validation? So I guess we can break validation up into various things. There's real-time validation, such as checking that a mobile number is going to connect, checking that a Gmail address is actually a real email address. All of those options, for example, are available, including things like IP addresses. For those of you listening that are in the UK, as an example, we host, going to test me here, but I think it might be 18 million records on the TPS, which is a telephone preference service. So we update that every day automatically. So that's part of validation. And then you've got other types of validation where each time we launch a new country into the platform, we research that country locally. So we like to understand, what do postcode formats look like? What do telephone numbers look like, split by both mobile and landline, and other various things. So validation in Leadbyte can either be paid for validation, and to be clear, billable validation is only when we are charged to do a lookup to Vodafone, for example. So we pass that cost on. Other validation, which might be filters, such as profanity names. So one of our cool features, which it was a quick build, but is used extensively, is the ability to, if first name and last name matches, reject lead or quarantine it. If you have too many consonants or too many vowels in succession, quarantine it. We have trending names, famous names, profanity names. So, Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't often get through if you enable it. So we've got those type of filters, which I still regard as validation, which is completely free. And we try to enrich that. So really, it's only the paid for ones that you pay for. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is key, guys, right? If you're starting out in pay per lead, okay, or you've got clients and they're coming back and they're saying the lead quality isn't there, and they, let's say they need to convert the leads at 15%, but yours are 10%, they're going to stop buying from you, okay? And the difference between 10 and 15% really isn't the traffic source, or people say Facebook, sometimes the quality isn't there. It's because you haven't set up things correctly with the likes of something like Leadbyte, where you can take away the leads that are never going to convert, and that'll bump you up to the 15% pretty quickly, right? And that's the secret, guys. Okay, so if you're serious about it, then you need to start investing and thinking about things like this.
And also, Dan, on that point, things such as a very quick example could be, you might be trading leads in Australia, and Anthony@hotmail.co.uk may be a valid email address, but it's perhaps quite unusual that that's based in Australia. So you can do things such as IP lookups to make sure it's specific to Australia, but also you may wish to add a top level ISP list ending with .com.au and all the different broadband. It's so easy to find that information now that you can just copy, paste into Leadbyte, and there's a bespoke filter making sure that you don't get people from a country that your buyer doesn't want to buy leads in.
Yep. And the other thing you can do as well, a little hack while I remember it, is that let's say you've got 1,000 leads that's come in, 1,000, and out of those 1,000, 100 of them are these spammy types. All right. What you can do is take those and not sell them to the client, obviously, and upload them into Facebook or Google or whatever, and create a lookalike of the crappy quality leads, right? And then exclude them from your targeting moving forward. So not only are you delivering the best type of leads to the client, you're actually, learning and finding out who the worst type of quality people are, so you don't actually show your ads to them in the future. And you're just going to get better and better and better and better over time.
And that's what people get from your course, Dan. That's news to me. So I've just learned something there around that. So I think it's a great way of doing things. So yeah.
Yep. All right. Okay. Higher levels of CRM, people answering questions, LeadsHook, blah, blah, blah. Leadbyte versus FLG, we've answered that one. Paul, if I had a 4-buyer contract in one vertical, would the deal be applicable?
Sorry, which one was that, Dan?
Paul said, if I had a 4-buyer contract in one vertical, would this deal be applicable? I imagine so, right?
I had a 4-buyer. Okay, so I see what Paul said. Sorry there, Paul. Yeah, so I think Paul's looking, saying, hey, I've got well, in this instance, the offer is 2 verticals and 2 buyers. Whereas if Paul had 1 buyer, 1 vertical and 4 buyers, can we still work the deal? Yeah, Paul, no problem. PM me after this and we'll make it happen.
Sweet. Sounds good. Or the other way around. Okay. Name validation filter. What a golden nugget. Yeah, guys, like I'm learning stuff too. That's it's just got me thinking. I'm going to get back onto my account managers after this call and just say, listen, are we really thinking about the crappy leads that are going through? We need to fix that.
I don't know if your name's in there as well, Dan. I know mine is.
Yeah.
Keeping you out the door, but yeah, no, it's a very simple filter, but it's used a lot.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Are the customer phone calls routed through Leadbyte to our buyer's direct numbers or through a call tracking number connected to the buyer?
So I think that's specifically around call tracking. So we don't do call tracking, just for the record.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, crappy audience, another golden nugget. Negative Facebook audience, brilliant, Dan. Yeah, it's a little hack that not many people know about. A negative Facebook lookalike audience, especially when you're advertising to broad audiences. Like, so some of our best audiences are kind of 35 plus the whole of the UK, right? Which is, I don't know, 30 million people or something. If you can create a 10% lookalike on that, then you can exclude a good chunk of people that are never going to be a good quality lead. And it's amazing Facebook's algorithm, how clever it is.
Yeah.
Is the data deletion time limit for GDPR easy to implement?
Great question. Guess something we haven't discussed too much about. GDPR, and I haven't specifically done that because I know it's European, and I don't know whether this is majority American or not. But to answer your question, James, the simple answer is yes. We have. I hear people say, "Are you GDPR compliant?" Well, we as a business are GDPR compliant, but the system, when GDPR kicked in, and prior to that, we interviewed all of our clients. I personally pretty much spoke to every single client that I could do, to understand what their GDPR policies were. And I think this is important, that every business's GDPR policies are different, and therefore they need to make sure that the tech they're using is aligned to that policy. So to answer James's question, the answer is yes, and we have a feature where you can auto delete leads after X period of time. So if your policy is to only retain data for a period of 60 days, then you put in that magic number 60, and the leads will start to be automatically deleted every 60 days.
Yep, that's cool.
And all your statistics are still retained, by the way. It's just the personal data that's gone.
Nice. All right, cool. New message. Oh, James is just saying nice. All right, cool. Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me here, and the more I think about it, is how genius it is. So if you're there's a lot of people that are out there trying to generate leads in particular verticals, right? But if they're trying to do this without technology like Leadbyte, then they're at a big disadvantage, because you know, simply by removing the leads and not selling them to the client is going to make a big difference with that relationship and your ability to get reorders. So I know there's people, I've seen some people that are in my program that have already bought my program that are listening in today.
Okay, great.
It's going to be good for you guys to take that intel away and start removing some of those leads, the crappy leads. But yeah, this is good. So on a crappy audience, I think it's coined the crappy audience now, based off my.
There you go, crappy audience.
On the crappy audience look like, do you exclude that audience in Facebook once it's built? Yes, exclude it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think also, Dan, you know, to your previous point about you going having a bit of a secret weapon, as a business, the way in which we generate new clients is we do paid advertising. We associate ourselves with groups like you, which you know, for the record, we fully paid for your group. Yep. And we work hard with our content distribution, and we're actively commenting on forums to try and add value. The other one which is the easy one, right? Like, what's the saying? Two in the hand, one in the bush, right? It's always easier to keep your current clients happy. And it's also very easy for me to knock on the door and say, are you happy with using Leadbyte? I love it. Great. Would you mind referring to some of your peers or people in the market? And by the way, do 5 and you get it for free. Yeah. And I understand it, but many say, and I'd love to, but this is my secret weapon. I don't want to tell people that I'm using Leadbyte, because if I do, I might lose my edge. And I understand that. You know, frustrating for me in many ways, but so I do think, to your point about this is the difference between turning a profit and not, and not just that, but scaling your business into the brand, and to achieve, going back to that original point, set your goals and achieve your financial goals or whatever it might be, even if it's lifestyle goals. If you want a nice, easy lifestyle, spend time with the family and the kids, and spend time on the golf course, which, by the way, I always thought that was a bit of a pipe dream, but it's totally achievable if you have the right processes in place and the systems to automate things that otherwise you'd be up at 5 in the morning checking data, and up at 10 o'clock at night checking whether the data was okay for the day. You know, it's important.
Yeah, cool. And one thing that I would like to add, I think we're just about to finish up here, guys, is that I've been blessed with having people in my program that are just super helpful and just actually go out of their way to help people and to be able to put them on the right path. And Ant's definitely one of those. So I'd just like to thank you, Ant.
That's a pleasure. No, great. Yeah.
For helping and just being there to, give your advice and add knowledge to my group. So I think it's great. So thank you very much. So yeah, I guess that's about it. And unless you've got something else to add, or anyone's got any other questions, then.
Well, Alex, I agree with Alex here. Can you just forget the golf course? I'll take beach with pretty girls in bikinis. Gone are those days. Maybe that was the 80s era, but yeah, no, I don't have anything to add, Dan, other than that. Thanks for, this was actually my first webinar, so hopefully I did all right. But
it's been great.
It's great dealing with people like you and the Flex group, because I have to say thank you to you, because I know that our system is as progressive as it is in the market, because the majority of the development that we do in our platform is driven by our clients, and ultimately clients may come from Flex Group. So people like you that bring on board new people trying to get into the pay-per-lead industry that are in weird and wonderful niches and things that we haven't even thought about that is a requirement from a buyer. It adds value to us as well. So no, thanks to you, and thanks to your students for staying hungry.
No problems, mate. Well, guys, it's been great. Thank you everyone for sticking around. We've gone on for an hour and a half now. So I really appreciate it, guys. And I guess we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Catch you later. Bye-bye.